Welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Startup Sense. This is your host, Jonah Lupton, and today I'm pretty excited about our next guest. It is Geoff Woo, the co-founder of Nootrobox. Geoff, what's happening?
Hey, Jonah. Thanks for having me on.
You got it, man. Where are you guys located? Where's the company based?
We're based in San Francisco.
Okay, cool. So just give the audience a little bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah. So grew up in Los Angeles area. Always been a California kid, I suppose. And studied computer science at Stanford. So computer scientist and engineer by training. And got plugged into the startup ecosystem, quite early. Was, drawn to the startup venture capital scene at Stanford, where, at the heart of Silicon Valley, had crazy amount of access to all these interesting companies, all these interesting investors visiting all the time, and ended up actually running the entrepreneurship club at Stanford. And that really sort of kickstarted, my interest in building companies and, building high growth companies especially. And I think one thing that was kind of funny to me was that a lot of, students that were in the entrepreneurship club kind of wanted to use that as like an interesting extracurricular to get to the iBanking or consulting jobs. And I thought that was always kind of BS. Like, hey, if you're part of the entrepreneurship club, you should actually build a startup. And, I saw all these kids making iPhone apps, and some were doing really well. I mean, the Instagram guys were a couple years older, Snapchat people were, 1 year younger. So it was that kind of milieu at Stanford where people were able to create these interesting companies at pretty early, scrappy, ages and phases. So lo and behold, we were building operating systems and routers, and I was like, hey, we should be able to build iPhone apps too. So we put our big brains to building really battery efficient location tracking software. And actually got backed by Y before we graduated. And we actually sold that company to Groupon in 2013. So
what was the name?
Pretty quick.
What was the name of that company?
The company's called GlassMap.
Okay.
And the quick one sentence pitch there is just, if folks out there have read Harry Potter, there's like this Marauders map that like Harry Potter and his friends could like see where everyone is moving around on campus, and we had built that for Stanford, and we're building Marauders map for everyone. Yeah, I mean, you can dive into that story, but obviously learned a lot through that first venture, and seeing the full life cycle of a company was pretty instrumental of learning for me, just seeing how business, there's a full life cycle, right? Going to market, fundraising, going through getting press, struggling, and eventually selling a company. I think, definitely sort of gives you some battle scars and learnings.
How much time when you started that company to when you sold it?
It was between a year and a half and 2 years, because around half the year we were still in school. So I don't know if I'd really count that as proper full time, because we were just finishing up, the last semester, the last couple of quarters of school.
Right.
But yeah,
right.
It was but again, pretty quick turnaround, pretty quick progress in a large scheme of things. And then, stuck around Groupon for 13 months.
Okay.
Obviously, typically with acquisitions, there are some golden handcuffs associated. And then during that time, I had pitched a VC firm called Foundation Capital. They have $2.8 billion under management. Some of their most interesting companies include, back in the day, Netflix, but more recently, Lending Club and Kick Messenger, and a couple other interesting companies. But yeah, it was really interesting to jump over to the VC side a little bit as an entrepreneur in residence.
So you did join. You joined Foundation as an EIR.
Yeah.
Nice.
If folks out there get the opportunity to be an EIR, I mean, definitely jump on it. I mean, it's another interesting little, snippet of how that process, I can shed some light into how that kind of stuff works.
Yeah. What is it? I mean, I definitely want to get to talking about your company, but I think there's a lot of people that wondered, like, what the heck is an EIR? I'm not even, I mean, I know a few of them. I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know if their job is to help the existing portfolio companies of the VC firm, or is it just to, spend their time thinking about new ideas that the VC company could back.
Yeah.
What did you do as the EIR?
So so that's like an interesting question that I've gotten a lot. I mean, yeah, people like just don't know what the hell are EIRs. Right? You get like a nice name card, you get a nice email address, and maybe on the website. Like, what does that mean? So it really is, sort of a bespoke position and opportunity that the EIR has with a general partner at the fund, right? Like, end of the day, like usually one or multiple of the GPs know who you are, think you have interesting ideas, and can add value in primarily one or two ways, right? Either, I think first, like, hey, we want to sort of help track you and help support you as you ideate the next thing that you want to work on, and also leverage your experience and judgment on assessing and doing due diligence on certain deals that are in your wheelhouse. Or, you probably potentially have like a reasonable network of sourcing interesting entrepreneurs. So I think for me personally, I was definitely on the track of, hey, I'm not done operating, not done building. I want to, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So I was focusing a lot of my time on the, ideating and prototyping part of entrepreneurship. But a lot of other EIRs that I've met, it's kind of a small community where sometimes, like, I know First Round Capital had a really cool EIR dinner where I met EIRs from like Google Ventures to, basically all the EIRs that would act as a Greylock, et cetera. And some folks were sort of, more interested in investing route, where it's like, hey, I'm kind of in an interim phase where ex-operator, and trying to sort of get my hands wet toes wet into the investing, world and getting exposure there.
Yeah, so it gives you kind of a glimpse into the VC life, from a different perspective, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting to sit on the other side and bring in entrepreneurs and doing due diligence and, just kicking the tires and seeing pitches from the other side. I mean, I think it's really helpful to understand what VCs are looking for, so you can sort of reverse engineer what you should be thinking about and what you should be pitching, what you should be telling them almost, right? Because kind of what people are looking for.
Right. I just can't imagine, like, being a VC. I think it does look glamorous now. We see these big VCs, whether it's Fred Wilson, Mark Suster, Mark Andreessen, but just to think that they have to go through like 100 to 200 deals a month just to maybe pick one they're going to invest in. There's so much time that's spent on due diligence.
I think it's very hard.
Yeah.
I think it's
so
actually very hard. Because I think it's, again, like, one, it's not even a picking problem for a lot of people. It's even like getting access to the best deals. You think about, look how venture returns work, right? It's only like the top few companies get all the returns.
Right.
And if you're not Mark Andreessen, you're not Sequoia, you're not, the top 10, top 15 funds, even if you are really smart and you'd be like, oh yeah, like that company is really awesome, how do you even get in? How do you even sell yourself to be like, hey, I can actually help take the company to the next level?
Right.
So I think it's an interesting dynamic.
Because even if you're right about VR or messaging or social or any of these things, if you're not in the top one or two, maybe three companies in that niche or vertical, you're screwed.
Yeah, you can't get in the deal. I mean, I think that's what's interesting, being out in the valley for, and seeing that dynamic, right? The hottest companies, like, you just can't even get in. They're like, it's not like, they're not capital constrained. They're functionality constrained, right? Like, what is your network? How can you add to our capabilities more than Andreessen Horowitz or more than whatever firm, right? And I think that's a tall order to ask if you're someone that's new to investing or, aren't as, well networked or well resourced. That's some of the, white shoe firms.
Yep, totally agree. Okay, let's switch gears and let's talk about Nootrobox. So you and your founder, your co-founder, came together. what made you guys want to jump into the business of, nootropics? And you
Yeah.
can tell the audience what exactly nootropics is.
Yes. So nootropics are compounds that enhance certain aspects of cognition. So, what is cognition? What is intelligence? Well, it's a complicated notion, but you can break it down to specific measurable psychometrics, including reaction time, working memory capacity, stamina, how tired do you get after, different tasks, right? And these are measurable, and these are things that you can optimize with, things that you consume, the different nootropics or different regimens. And I think it's interesting for me personally to go from, a computer science background and an engineer's approach to something that's, basically in the realm of biology. I think it's what I think gets us some interesting perspective on the space where, fundamentally, the human system is a system, and systems are defined by the notion of having inputs into a system with measurable outputs. And it stands to reason that, hey, there's a lot more sensors being developed around measuring human biometrics, and we can be a lot more granular with inputting things into the human body. It stands to reason we can start measuring and optimizing the human system. And Michael and I, my co-founder, having come off of, this was during my EIR gig, and Michael had just left Google as a product manager, looking to take the next, level up his career and what he wanted to do. We're just looking at a bunch of different spaces, and one notion that I've always personally thought was very interesting was enhancing the human experience. I think we've all seen sort of sci-fi movies where people are getting implants, or even Limitless, the Bradley Cooper movie where people, he was taking this drug NZT and became, super smart, super productive. I think there's always a very captivating notion, and personally just started diving into the hobbyist community. And if you just look at the Google trends for nootropics, it's up and to the right. It's growing really quickly, and a bunch of crazy, weird people are online, trading ideas and trading theories on different stacks or different combinations of nootropics. People were sourcing.
For instance, what's what was one of the sites where you found these kind of biohackers that were messaging each other like, hey, try this or try that? Is it just...
So Reddit, subreddit our nootropics is very active. Launchcity.org, which is a longevity, transhumanist forum, is super active. And I think what I saw there was that, the homebrew computing club days of the 70s and 80s where, Steve Wozniak and original computer hackers, that was before my time. But I felt, if I had to say, what feels like that today, of this notion of people tinkering with computer parts, tinkering with and seeing what they could do with computers, I feel like that same kind of hacker ethos today is in the biohacker community, where people are tinkering with different compounds, different chemicals, different ways to measure their biometrics with implants, with wearables, blood tests, whatnot. That same, I think, creative spirit is happening today in the biohacker world. And one of my big theses is that if there were billion-dollar, interesting paradigm-shifting companies being built out of the computer hacking world, we think that the same thing's going to happen in the biohacking world, and that humans will be that next innovation platform where, the computer was the innovation platform of the last, 20, 30 years.
So you guys come up with these formulas. I know you have 4 main products that, anybody can go to the website and purchase. There's Yawn, which is kind of like a sleep aid. There's Rise, there's Cato, and there's Sprint. You want to talk about those products real briefly and how they all work together and why it's a nice combination?
Yeah, absolutely. So our process is that in this crazy universe of things that one can consume, there are, some that are kind of crazy, some that are very speculative, like research chemicals, and some that actually are one, FDA generally regarded safe, and then two, actually have a body of Western double-blind randomized controlled trial data that shows statistically significant effects on healthy human volunteers. Right. So I think we have 3 MD PhDs that are on our team helping advise us on building things that are medically significant. Right. So we target different aspects of cognition. So our RISE product is a memory and anti-fatigue product. Beyond, as you mentioned, sleep, sprint. Basically, can we rebuild a better cup of coffee? Better than just a caffeine kick. And
right.
Keto 3, just another chronic product that helps give you the building blocks for healthy brain function. So we really just boiled down and looked at how could we rebuild and sort of restart what supplements industry could really look like in the next 10, 15 years, where we're actually a lot more quantitative and a lot more precise about the inputs and the output biometric tracking around it. So we really look at what we're doing now is your phase 1, which is building state-of-the-art inputs or consumables, and phase 2 as building the software to capture the output. Software on, for example, Apple Watch or on our mobile devices to really capture that output. So you can close what I call closing the loop, right? If you have inputs and you're not tracking outputs, well, again, you're not capturing information from the system. But if both, you can actually start personalizing, by your activities, by your genome, for nootropics that are tailored to you specifically. So that's what we're building towards.
I mean, all of us are looking for an edge. We're looking for a way to get ahead, of the next person. Whether you're trying to, climb the corporate ladder, whether you're an entrepreneur, college kid. I can see where all this stuff. It's an investment in yourself. In your health, your future, your body. We all put a lot of crap into our bodies, whether that's food or alcohol or caffeine or drugs, whatever.
Right.
And you don't even think about the short-term or long-term side effects. So, no, I think you guys are doing a really cool stuff, and I'm going to be a customer very, very soon. Now, tell me about, okay, so you guys come up with the products. You guys, launch a website just to kind of test out the market. You start to get some really good traction, good feedback. Now you decide that you need more capital to help grow the company, scale. When do you guys start talking to investors?
Yeah. So to give you a sense of the timing here, we were looking at, the space as hobbyists, right? I think, as you mentioned, I think getting that edge is, especially in Silicon Valley or people that are polyfunctioning, is something that's innate to us, right? So again, it's cut from that cloth. That was something that I was personally interested in. And then it was hey, this is an interesting space where a lot of players just didn't seem like they were trustworthy, not great user experiences. I couldn't get the service that I wanted. Should we make it? Was kind of the quick response, quick answer. And as me coming from a systems building background in computer science, and my co-founder, as more on the design and human computer interaction side of computer science, we were able to build websites really quickly, right? So we test. So I think as pretty scrappy, lean-minded folks, we were able to throw up a landing page to just see what the kind of traffic we could get at that in a weekend. And we were able to, we posted on a bunch of different forums that it seemed really likely, and we actually got 34 pre-orders that weekend. Our first, quote unquote, $1,000 worth of revenue. And I was hey, that's pretty interesting, where we could get basically organic traffic and actually convert, a non-trivial amount of customers. Maybe this is actually something real. And then we started actually pursuing it and actually doubling down and building out the actual service and actually getting the production line set up where we could actually go to market. And so this is around, May, June of 2014. And I think by December of 2014, we were doing over 10K a month. I mean, quite a bit over, 5 figures a month in revenue. And I was like, hey, this is, we just wanted to hit like, could we even get 10K a month? And at that point, that's a 6-figure annualized business, right? And we're doing bigger and bigger inventory runs. We needed working capital. So, being an EIR, Foundation Capital, is obviously very warm intros into the partners there.
Right.
And then, we had just personal friends and investors at the time where, for example, Marissa Mayer was an angel investor because Michael used to work for her at Google. We went to Marissa's holiday party that she throws in Palo Alto, and I bumped into this gentleman, and it was Mark Pincus, and we started talking, and got him interested in the concept, and we ended up grabbing lunch that next week because our offices were actually just like right next door. And we got him involved in the company as well. So we basically built out, an angel round or a friends and family round, just organically through the internal network that we knew. It wasn't like a crazy process where we're just like hunting for financing. We're just like, hey, we have a growing business. Like it was just completely bootstrapped off of my credit card.
Wow.
And hey, like, we're throwing off real revenues now. Let's actually do this proper, more officially and get some working capital here.
So you guys raised $2.6 million, and then how did you guys start to?
So we raised that first $500K around late 2014.
Okay.
And then we just kept growing until we're basically hitting into 7-figure $1 million revenue range, and this is where it was really, really interesting with Andreessen. So one of their partners, one of the junior investing staff members, just emailed us like, "Hey, like I'm interested in nootropics, want to chat?" And we're just like, "Hey, like we like Andreessen. Andreessen Horowitz is one of the best firms. Let's start talking." So my co-founder, grabs coffee or grabs a bite with one of their partners, and it goes well. And it takes a couple weeks to get on one of the GP's calendars. And this is something in Chris Dixon's wheelhouse. So Chris Dixon is has done like some of the, I would say like the interesting type of investments for Andreessen, where he's done companies like Oculus, who is on Oculus's board, to companies like Soylent, to like a lot of their AI. And
he's definitely like Chris is one of those investors. He's very forward thinking. Like he's trying to figure out where's the technology, where's the world going to be in 5 years, and let's go there now. Yep.
So yeah, Chris is awesome, and I think a big testament to how decisive and honorable Andreessen was that we come in and meet with Chris and a couple of his partners on Wednesday. We talk them through our business, our ideas, and where we want to take the company. And he was like, "Awesome! Like, I want you to meet a few more of my partners the following Monday." And I didn't think too much of it. He was like, "Okay, a few more partners should be no problem." And we drive down again to the Menlo Park office, and we walk into the boardroom, and it was quite a bit more than a few other partners. We had like 25 folks from Andreessen Horowitz. Ben was right next to Ben Horowitz, Mark Andreessen, a couple of the other GPs. It was like
that's intimidating.
I was like, whoa, this is a real show. And we at the time, I think we had very good numbers. Again, we were doing real revenues. And we go off, and I get a call from Chris that afternoon being like, "Hey, we want to invest." And they sent a term sheet that evening, and we had negotiated some fine details and actually signed the term sheet in a couple of days on Wednesday. So end to end, it was a week from like when we met Chris to like signing terms with him, which I think shows a sense of how responsive those guys are and how decisive they are when they think that something's really interesting.
Now, I mean, obviously, Andreessen Horowitz is one of the best VC firms out there. But did you guys, before you accepted the term sheet or took the deal, signed, whatever, did you go back to some of your angel investors and say, hey, what do you think about us taking money from Andreessen, or just, what do you think about raising VC money right now?
I think it was an interesting sort of inflection point at the time where we were already sort of contemplating looking to raise additional financing, and it was just like a really good timing where like they reached out, like we were gonna like start like running a process. And I think in terms of like the mutual fit, like I think that especially like back a year ago, it probably just seemed like a bit of a crazy company for a VC to invest in. So I think their experience with big plays, they were the firm that we wanted to work with, honestly, right? So it was just like, hey, these are like pretty good terms. We want to work with Chris. We want to work with the firm. They clearly were super honorable for like, I think a lot of VCs, you hear all these like kind of weird stories where like they make you wait in the lobby or whatnot. I mean, they were waiting for us, it's just like they were, very honorable people through the whole process. We're like, hey, we have, probably one of the best VCs that wants to work with us. We're not going to, just go around and shop term sheets and like extend it out.
Think about all the time you spend. I mean, fundraising is such a time-consuming. Oh, it's miserable. So,
yeah.
I mean, by taking that round from Andreessen, you probably saved yourself, a couple hundred hours, if not more than that, time that you'd be out fundraising, talking to other firms.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just like, look, we got like probably one of the best possible VCs for our space to come partner with us. Dude, we're awesome. Let's like focus on building a business here. Like at the end of the day, as I'm sure everyone that's listening, the end goal is not to fundraise a bunch of money. The end goal is to build an actually good business. So it's good to just like get the financing that we needed to grow and focus on building a good business.
So how did things change? How did the customer acquisition strategy change from when you guys were bootstrapped in the very beginning, getting product market fit, to when you guys raised some angel money to, then being VC backed? How quickly did you guys ramp up that channel? Or what were the channels? What channels?
Yeah.
Where did you see the success?
I mean, I think in the beginning, like, I mean, you're just super scrappy, right? Like, you spend $1 on a Facebook ad, you better like see that dollar come back at some point. Like it's like coming out of your personal credit card. It's very, very. You got to be like very, very tentative and measured. So I think a lot of our success has been on being, I think the timing helps a lot. Where I think this whole biohacking movement is starting to get mainstream traction, and we were like really good poster childs of it in the sense that what does biohacking look like in 2015? What does it look like in 2016? And we had a pretty good notion of what our community, I mean, it's really us now. I mean, it's legitimately, we have become really, almost the center of Silicon Valley biohackers. So I think it's an interesting story. So I think we were able to get a lot of earned media by just being a part of an interesting movement. And then as we got, the high level PR sort of leverage, our paid acquisition and ads started to convert a lot better. So it was like this lockstep function of, running pretty selective, targeted, Facebook, ads to, and getting sort of the PR, air cover, and then being able to grow out our, be more confident in spending and targeting as we were able to get more and more mainstream coverage. I mean, I think if you just, look at Nootrobox and Google News, we had a really cool profile in New York Magazine that came out last week. We've been covering the New York Times a couple of times, Wall Street Journal. So I think it's like and I think a lot of it's not just like, it is literally like a movement that we've been able to sort of tap into, this biohacking movement. So I think we've been lucky to have a bit of good luck and timing and being a part of an interesting story.
I totally agree. Totally agree. What kinds of like customer, or what I call, referral growth hacking. So, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Spotifys, the Hotel Tonights, when they were growing in the early days or even the early years, it was, refer your friend and we'll give you a free ride, or we'll give you $20 off your next booking, or this or that. You guys try any of that stuff? Like, what kind of referral system has worked for you guys?
Yeah. I think, it's one of those like start tropes, like your customers are your best advocates, right? And I think that's very much true. If you don't have that like word of mouth viral factor in your products, then it just tough to like see that exponential growth. We have referral programs where every one of our customers has like a unique referral link. We were inspired by Dropbox, where you get a friend on Dropbox, you get extra 5 gigabytes or whatever of Dropbox data, whatever that amount is.
Right.
And we had $5-10 credit for each new customer or each new referee built into our free. And I think one non-obvious thing that we did was that we built in like what we called sprint packs into every single shipment. And it was like a little blister pack of 2 sprint pills that we told, hey, give this to a friend. Like, this is a freebie, give it to a friend. So we basically built in some like viral components into the physical products themselves. And I think that's like one thing that perhaps gives us a unique edge, or a bit of a head start, if you will, is that we're born and bred in, social consumer, and just seeing how some of the most fast-growing companies do little viral hacks on consumer, on apps. So we bring that type of thinking, that strategy into the physical product world, right? So that's like putting a referral link into a shipment. If you're going to ship someone a sample, the cost of literally like mailing something probably is going to be like as much, if not more, than like a sample product, right? So we're like, hey, let's just write off. If we believe in the product, then we should have our customers give out samples to their friends and don't even worry about and write off like the sample cost. Because if you were going to send out shipments of samples to people, the shipment cost, the postage is like the dominating cost, not even the product.
Yeah.
So
sure.
I think it was like thinking about like breaking down like some of these like economics in a way that just made more sense.
I used to get the same question when I owned my supplement company back in 2012 to 2014. Was, a lot of people would message me or email me through the website or social media saying, hey, can you send me a sample of your protein or your pre-workout or this or that? And I'm thinking like, it's going to cost me like $3 or $4 to send them a sample. If I'm doing that 100 times a month, this starts to get pretty expensive over time.
Exactly.
No, that's actually a pretty good idea. I'm actually not sure if I've ever heard of a company really doing that before, but it does make total sense. Do you guys have any data or metrics as to how many of those samples actually got into the hands of, potential customers, and how many of those customers came back to your website and ordered product?
Yeah, we have some. We definitely put in some like referral, some tracking links in there to have a sense of that. I think we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't working.
Right.
Put it that way.
It's definitely harder to track physical product, referrals more so than, something online or mobile based. Do you guys even know your the customer your cost of customer acquisition? Are those any numbers that you guys share, or any metrics or KPIs you want to talk about?
I guess one way to think about it is we try to I think in terms of like CA, customer acquisition cost, I think it's a thing that like never is stable. I think when people think, oh, I can always attract customers at $30 or what, $50, $100, I think it's like a misconception. I think it's like each channel taps out, right? Like you might find a channel that works, but then as you keep mining that channel or extracting value from the channel, that channel gets more expensive. What I've found is that you need to just constantly it's not like a passive thing where like you find a channel and you start pouring infinite money into it. Something that needs to be tended and needs to be adapted as channels dry up and need to be, updated.
So,
But yeah, I mean, I think that's like definitely like a balancing equation that, sort of every company that has to it should be just tracking, closely. Absolutely.
yeah, if you don't measure it and track it, you don't know what's actually working and where you should be doubling down and what you should stop doing.
Right.
What have been some of the hardest things, I guess, about starting this company and then growing it to this point? Or the hardest, or kind of any mistakes that you guys made along the way that you wish you could go back and change up?
Yeah. I think as software, as in some of that came purely in the software world, it was a big, it's something. It's kind of a big transition to go from just dealing with code to like, hey, we're moving like tens of thousands of things around the country every single month, and I think that was like a big learning experience. But I think we learned the right way, where I just flew. We just like took red-eye flights and visited factories in Atlanta, in Miami, in New York, in Southern California, everywhere. I mean, we just like learned, New Jersey. We just like flew everywhere and just talked to as many people that were producing, nutraceutical supplements, facilities had FDA drug licenses and ramped up really quickly. Obviously, I would have liked to, now I would maybe venture that I know a thing or two about the consumer packaged goods space. So obviously, skipping a lot of the red eye flights, staying in Motel 6s because we wanted it to be super scrappy, would have been nice to sort of skip through. But I think those are just really the fundamental, battle scars that you need to like have credibility to talk about the space. You're talking to folks that are older, have been in this industry longer, or whatnot, right? And I think you have to build your bones at some point, right? Like I think those experiences of just like false starts and like wasting time talking to people that are clearly don't know what they're doing. You just don't know until you have those conversations.
Right. And I mean, you didn't come out of the kind of health and science world. You didn't grow up in kind of the nootropics industry. I mean, you really,
right.
You fell into it and then you're kind of learning it on the fly, right?
Yeah. And I think that's like the fundamental, most important thing as an entrepreneur. You can't theory craft like the whole roadmap to how you become a billionaire. It's just like you will have to constantly level up your game as you keep growing each stage of your company. So just the core meta skill, like how fast can you learn? How open are you to learn the different skill sets you need at each stage of the company?
Now, are you guys right now, you just sell the products on the website, so you're kind of a direct consumer business model. Any thoughts about going into retail someday?
Yeah, so we have another product that's actually one of our fastest growing products called Go Cubes. It's a chewable coffee cube. So it's like half a cup of coffee in a gummy cube. Has some same like nootropic formulation of Sprint, and it's like a really fun, like super like consumer friendly form factor for a short-term focus boost. And we're actually in all the 7-Elevens in San Francisco, and we're rolling out to hopefully nationwide in the next in 2017. So
awesome.
Stay tuned for seeing these Go Cubes at your local convenience store. Yeah, no, like the data on the pilot stores have been awesome. I mean, I think we're excited about going into retail.
I mean, so you guys will be sitting next to those 5-hour energy shots probably on the all convenience store shelves. That's kind of the goal, or counters.
Yeah, exactly. That's where we're at in San Francisco.
Awesome. Tell me about kind of either your personal goals over the next 6 to 12 months, or the company goals, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing, especially from a personal perspective, is going from sort of the scrappy entrepreneur bootstrap phase to, hey, you have to be an executive running a multi-million-dollar operation, right? And I think that's an interesting transition point where there's a lot of different skill sets that you need to upgrade. Where when when it's just you and your co-founder in your living room, banging out code or hustling customers, you're doing a ton of what I call IC work, individual contributor work. And when you're going into super scale, as a CEO or as a founder, the main things that you should be doing, you cannot be doing IC work. It's almost like counterproductive to what your core things should be, which are very simple. 3 things, like making sure you have enough money in the bank account, like fundraising. 2, being the keeper of the vision, just being able to storytell and communicate to your employees, your customers, your investors, to the press, what is the mission of your company? And then lastly, building out the best team you can possibly get, right? And everything else should be delegated and rolified. So on a personal level, just like really going from that scrappy entrepreneur, founder, mode to like, okay, let's level up and turn into more of a manager or an executive. So hopefully, as a personal goal, develop further as executive. And then obviously from a company standpoint, yeah, let's keep growing. Let's keep getting the biohacking message out there, and see more of our products in online and in retail stores.
Awesome. Yeah, I said 6 to 12 months. I didn't want to say 3 to 5 years, because in the startup world, 3 to 5 years just sounds like an eternity. A million things
Right.
now and then. And then kind of the last question to wrap things up today, and I mean, you've been awesome, is your single best piece of advice for any entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've seen that has been like a differentiating factor between startups that do well and have good outcomes to ones that are different is that I think most people are smart enough. Most people have, and I think most people have a reasonably good enough idea. What I've seen to be the difference is a wiliness or a cunning to just get things across the finish line, whether it's selling a company or closing that financing round. So I think everyone kind of gets 80% of the way there. You have a couple good conversations with an investor, and you're 80% there, but you can't cross the finish line. And I think there's some sort of killer instinct that gets you from almost to the finish line to okay, you close a deal, lock it down. And I think, I don't know, developing that, you can't get 80% of the way there. You gotta get to 100%, and having that persistence or that cunning to push all the way through is, I think, the biggest thing that you can develop as a skill as an entrepreneur.
Well said. Yep. That tenacity and persistence to get you across the finish line, where most people they give up, or they get distracted right before they get there. It's hard.
But I think they scare themselves out of it sometimes.
Yeah.
Where it's just I'm almost there. I almost could have done it, but I need to do something else. Or they almost talk themselves out of just getting it through, get it done. It's a weird mental block, I think, that a lot of people just need to overcome.
Totally agree. Awesome, man. I don't want to take up any more of your day. I know you're busy growing this company, so just want to thank you for coming on and being a guest. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the listeners appreciate it. You shared a ton of good stuff. I'm looking forward to kind of keeping an eye on what you guys are doing, and keep kicking ass. And feel free to come back anytime and give us updates.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Jonah.
You got it, man. Thanks, Geoff. Have a good one.
Hey, peace. Cheers.